This year is the first ever virtual MIT Sloan CIO Symposium, and the theme is the Big Reset Digital Enterprises Shift into High Gear. So, based on that, what are you seeing in terms of the CIO role changing? What are they doing differently over the last year?
Yeah, well, let me say this is the first digital edition of the symposium. We've been doing the symposium for like 18 years. And in terms of, you know, CIOs roles changing, I guess the biggest cliche is that uh, COVID brought 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. And, CIOs, first of all, had to really focus on operations. They had a lot of people scatter, having to work remotely. Customer habits had to change. Um, so they had to take care of that. What I'm hearing a lot from CIOs is that they are really becoming more and more integrated into the business, becoming partners with the business rather than, being in the back office. And so they're getting more involved in strategy, getting more involved in planning, especially as companies are embracing some of the new technologies like cloud and AI. They're really seeing new opportunities both to um, save money and also venture out into new products.
Right. And so you mentioned this push for digital transformation and the acceleration of it. And you mentioned digital technologies. So which of these digital technologies are you seeing CIOs embrace more or less of over the last year during the pandemic?
Yeah, well, so as I mentioned, so the first thing is obviously, the online infrastructure. So as thousands of employees moved out, the CIOs had to make sure that they could get connectivity, that the data was secure, that they were able to conduct online meetings. Of course, everybody is on Zoom all the time now. And so that was, um, first and foremost was just keeping the operation running. But what I'm hearing from a lot of CIOs is a move to the cloud. And one CIO put it really in an interesting way. He said that often CIOs were working on the plumbing, right? And so they were looked at as kind of a back office, bring in the plumber when you need to get something fixed, and otherwise, the business does their thing. But as they've been moving into the cloud and getting their processes in place using Agile and DevOps, they've begun to be able to think more abstractly about the business problems and partner with the other business leaders. And it leads to an opportunity to bring in artificial intelligence as well as data analytics, because they can identify problems that can be solved, and then bring in those technologies to solve them. And so we're seeing a lot of um, I guess what I would say CIOs moving up to a higher level of abstraction as they look at the bigger business problems and try to bring value to their clients, as well as their employees.
Right. And you mentioned the word agile, which I'm seeing a lot of. And it almost seems as if CIOs and the organizations as a whole are adopting this agile mindset, taking those principles from agile and just applying it across departments so that they all have this mindset to innovate and to empower teams and to kind of adapt to this new normal. Are you seeing a lot of that?
Yeah, and actually in a number of different ways. I mean, Agile, as you know, kind of grew out of the software development community as people were trying to figure out, how to build these large software systems. But now it's become something that, I think has been embraced across the corporate culture more generally. And I mean, when you think about what the CIOs have to do, they have to manage their products and infrastructure, not just from a digital point of view, but also they have their supply chains. So, for example, we have Yossi Sarif talking about, the impact of the pandemic on businesses. And, part of that was supply chain disruption, which we all experienced. But if you think about it, to a large degree, it's a data problem in terms of the planning and the logistics and, connecting with all the different vendors. And so resiliency, one of the ways to deal with resiliency is to be more agile and to be able to adapt more quickly to changes in the environment. And I think that's one of the things that, COVID really has taught people.
Right. And you guys have the CIO Leadership Award, which takes place during the symposium. So, given this major disruption that we all experienced, are there any CIO projects or endeavors that surprised you over the last year, ones that stood out?
So what I would say is that the pandemic has really brought about a lot of shifts in people's mindset. That's the thing that stands out for me. So, cultural shifts in terms of companies really embracing, the need for digitization, the need to integrate digital into their products and how to figure out how to bring that value. There's a lot of work going on to train employees and so that they can have people thinking at all levels of the organization. Um, Also talent acquisition, the where do you find talent and where can that talent live? I, I don't think we're going to go back to working in offices, although we will to some degree, but it's going to be a mix, and people are finding that they can find talent from a wider pool because remote work has been more embraced. I also think that there's shifts in education. People are starting to wonder, do we always need a 4-year degree, or how do I keep up as a professional? Online education has become both prevalent and accepted in many ways, and consumer habits have changed. Contactless um, uh, transactions and customer expectations in terms of ordering products online. Do they want to go into the stores? So I think that what really strikes me about the time that we're in right now is just that everybody is shifting in so many different directions, and CIOs are really at the hub of keeping up with those shifts and adapting the technology and working with the other business leaders